Hello everyone, what's up? Welcome to GMA24 Update News Channel. Hope you will enjoy our news video. Before we begins, hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Here is the news title. What were they doing for 14 years? Financial experts offer scathing verdict on labor. Rather than asking banks for help, Rachel Reeves and her labor colleagues should already have worked out what they were going to do, argued one expert. Rachel Reeves's move to invite senior banking chiefs to Downing Street to discuss ways of stimulating economic growth has prompted one financial expert to ask, what has Labour been doing for the last 14 years? The Chancellor is believed to have summoned top executives at Barclays, Lloyds Banking Group, NatWest and Nationwide and others to a meeting on Wednesday. But Scott Gallacher, director at Rowley Turton, was skeptical about the benefits which would accrue. He said, Rachel Reeves meeting with the banks is all well and good, but the real question is why she needs to do this just months into the job. Did Labour not spend 14 years in opposition developing a proper growth strategy? And if the financial sector is so crucial to their plans, why has it taken this long for her to sit down with them? Mr. Gallacher suggested it had been obvious for years that the UK's fundamental problems, namely low growth, high debt, weak productivity, and a persistent balance of payments deficit, required more than just tweaks to mortgage lending and consumer confidence to resolve. He added, we need a real economic strategy that prioritizes long-term investment, infrastructure, and supply-side reforms. If Labour didn't have a fully formed plan ready to go on day one, what exactly were they doing for the past decade and a half? Wes Wilkes, CEO at net worth NTWRK, described Ms. Reeves as in perpetual search of an echo. He explained, she seems to be having conversations in as many corners as possible until she finds someone that agrees with her. The answer is staring her and the Starmer government in the face, but it would take a dose of humility and some knowledge of the economic system to reverse some of her hideous budget decisions, so we shouldn't hold our breath. Riz Malik, independent financial advisor at R3 Wealth, added, asking the banks for help after already consulting regulators suggests an administration that appears to be out of ideas and lacking a clear strategy for economic growth. If they've exhausted all their plans, who's next on the list for advice? Primary school children? Posting on X on Thursday after the Bank of England reduced the base rate by 0.25% to 4.5%, Ms. Reeves said, the interest rate cut will help ease cost of living pressures, but I am still not satisfied with the growth rate. That's why we are going further and faster for growth, taking on the blockers and ripping up unnecessary regulatory barriers to get more money
What were they
in people's
doing
pockets. For 14 years, a detailed analysis of Labour's economic preparedness. Introduction. Rachel Reeves' decision to consult senior banking executives shortly after taking office as Chancellor has sparked sharp criticism from financial experts, many of whom question Labour's economic planning during their 14 years in opposition. Given the urgency of the UK's economic challenges, including low growth, high debt, weak productivity, and a persistent balance of payments deficit, the question arises, what was Labour doing in opposition, and why didn't they have a fully formed economic strategy ready to implement on day one? This analysis delves into Labour's economic stance during their years in opposition, the criticisms they now face, and the broader implications of their approach to governance. Labour's 14 years in opposition. A historical overview. Labour lost power in 2010 after the global financial crisis and a highly contentious period under Gordon Brown. The subsequent Conservative-led coalition government, followed by a decade of Tory rule, meant that Labour spent 14 years without executive power. During this time, Labour went through multiple leadership changes, shifting economic perspectives and internal struggles that influenced their policy approach. Ed Miliband's leadership, 2010-2015. Following Gordon Brown's departure, Ed Miliband led Labour with a focus on addressing income inequality and the perceived excesses of austerity. However, his economic strategy was often criticized as being unclear and uninspiring to voters. The party failed to articulate a compelling growth strategy, instead centering much of its platform around critiquing conservative cuts. Key policies included a proposed energy price freeze and support for a higher minimum wage, but these were seen as reactive rather than proactive economic solutions. Jeremy Corbyn's leadership, 2015-2020. Under Corbyn, Labour took a sharp turn to the left, advocating for large-scale nationalization, higher taxation on the wealthy, and increased government spending. His economic manifesto included ambitious plans such as free broadband, renationalization of rail and utilities, and a green industrial revolution. However, concerns about the feasibility of these policies and their potential impact on investment led to skepticism among financial experts and businesses. Labour's defeat in 2019, in part due to economic credibility concerns, showed that the electorate remained unconvinced of the party's ability to manage the economy effectively. Keir Starmer's leadership, 2020-present. Starmer repositioned Labour towards the centre, seeking to restore economic credibility and distance the party from Corbyn's socialist policies. Rachel Reeves, appointed as Shadow Chancellor, emphasized fiscal responsibility and prudent public spending. Labour's economic messaging became more about stability rather than radical transformation, but this also raised questions about whether they had a substantive growth strategy beyond simply opposing conservative policies. The criticism: lack of a cohesive economic strategy. Experts and financial professionals have pointed out that Labour's decision to consult banks so early in their administration indicates a lack of preparation. Among the key criticisms are, why wasn't a strategy already in place? After 14 years in opposition, Labour should have had a comprehensive plan ready to implement immediately upon taking office. Critics argue that meeting with banks to discuss growth strategies just months into government suggests Labour was still in listening mode, rather than executing a well-thought-out agenda. Over-reliance on financial sector. Input while engaging with banks is crucial. A robust economic strategy should be based on independent economic research, policy development, and expert consultation well in advance of taking office. The fact that Reeves is seeking input now, rather than having already formulated a clear approach, raises concerns about Labour's preparedness. Addressing core economic challenges. The UK's economic challenges, including sluggish productivity growth and high public debt, require long-term structural reforms, rather than short-term fixes. Critics argue that Labour has yet to outline a concrete strategy for tackling these fundamental issues beyond regulatory tweaks and incentives for business investment. What Labour needs to do now to establish credibility and demonstrate readiness to govern effectively, Labour must clearly define their growth strategy. Instead of reactive measures, Labour needs a proactive economic blueprint detailing how they intend to stimulate investment, improve productivity, and create long-term economic resilience. Show leadership and decision-making confidence. Rather than appearing to seek validation from financial institutions, Reeves and her team should articulate a clear vision and take decisive action. Labour left red-faced as Donald Trump threatens to slap huge tariffs on 2 imports. Donald Trump has threatened to impose tariffs on a number of countries, while U.S. President in a bid to bolster U.S. manufacturing. Donald Trump has threatened to slap 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminum imports, despite UK ministers predicting Britain would avoid a trade clash with the U.S. President. Senior Treasury Minister Darren Jones had predicted that Mr. Trump would not impose heavy tariffs on the UK after. Labour insisted it can do business with the incoming U.S. administration. When asked if the UK had a plan to deal with potential trade tariffs from the incoming Trump government, he said, "I don't think we're going to be in that scenario." But in a late-night announcement, Mr. Trump said steel could now also face tariffs. UK ministers and officials will be hammering the phones on Monday to get more information out of the White House about what comes next and whether the UK can get an exemption. This will include a flurry of activity from the new U.S. Ambassador Peter Mandelson as he confronts his first major diplomatic challenge in the role. UK official told Playbook on Sunday night that British diplomats were immediately engaging the U.S. system on steel and aluminum tariffs. Speaking to reporters on Air Force One, Mr. Trump said, "We'll also be announcing steel tariffs on Monday. Everybody, steel. Any steel coming into the United States will have 25% tariffs. Aluminum, too. About 1/10 of the UK's total steel exports were sent to America in 2024. But the industry is already in long-term decline in the UK, and this could be the start of more tariffs on different products entering the US. It is in the best interests of both the UK and US that the two countries carry on with their balanced trade," a minister has said in response to Mr. Trump's threat to impose tariffs on steel and aluminium imports. Dame Angela Eagle told Sky News, "We have a very balanced trading relationship with the US. I think $300 billion worth of trade between our countries, and I think it's in the best interests of both of us, as long-standing allies and neighbors, that we carry on with that balanced trade. We will have to wait and see whether the president gets more specific about what he meant by that comment on the way to the Super Bowl. Westminster will be watching to see whether Sir Keir follows in China's footsteps by retaliating. The communist nation's tit-for-tat import taxes on some American goods came into effect on Monday. Beijing announced the plan on 4 February minutes after new U.S. levies of 10% on all Chinese products came into effect. China's latest tariffs on U.S. goods include a 15% border tax on imports of U.S. coal and liquefied natural gas products. There is also a 10% tariff on American crude oil, agricultural, machinery, and large engine cars. Labor left red-faced as Donald Trump threatens to slap huge tariffs on two imports introduction. Former U.S. President Donald Trump has once again shaken the global trade landscape by announcing his intention to impose a 25% tariff on all steel and aluminum imports. This move comes as a shock to UK ministers, who had previously downplayed the likelihood of trade tensions with the US under Trump's administration. Senior UK officials are now scrambling to understand the implications and seek exemptions to avoid potential economic damage. Background: Trump's trade policies. Donald Trump has long championed protectionist policies, aiming to bolster US manufacturing by imposing tariffs on imports. During his previous tenure in the White House, he launched multiple trade wars, most notably with China, in an effort to reduce America's trade deficit and protect domestic industries. In 2018, Trump introduced tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, citing national security concerns under Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962. This move led to retaliatory tariffs from the European Union, Canada, and China, affecting global trade dynamics. Now, with his potential return to power, Trump is signaling a renewed commitment to these economic strategies, placing countries like the UK in a precarious position. The UK government's initial response, Senior Treasury Minister Darren Jones, had recently expressed confidence that the UK would avoid Trump's trade tariffs. However, this optimism has quickly dissipated following Trump's late-night announcement aboard Air Force One. In response, UK ministers and officials have launched immediate diplomatic efforts, with newly appointed U.S. Ambassador Peter Mandelson at the forefront of negotiations. A UK official confirmed that diplomats are engaging the U.S. system on steel and aluminum tariffs, signaling a flurry of back-channel discussions aimed at securing exemptions. Potential impact on the UK steel and aluminum industry. The UK steel industry, already facing significant challenges, could be severely impacted by these new tariffs. Approximately 10% of the UK's total steel exports were sent to the US in 2024, and the introduction of a 25% tariff could further diminish an industry already in long-term decline. Economic consequences. Higher tariffs could lead to reduced exports, factory closures, and job losses in the steel sector. Supply chain disruptions. UK manufacturers relying on steel exports may need to find alternative markets, potentially increasing costs. Inflationary pressure. Tariffs often result in higher prices for raw materials, which could lead to increased production costs across various industries. UK's diplomatic strategy. The UK government faces a tough task in securing exemptions or negotiating a favorable trade arrangement. Strategies being explored include bilateral negotiations, engaging directly with U.S. trade officials to highlight the mutual benefits of maintaining tariff-free trade. Allied pressure, working with the European Union and other affected nations to present a unified front against the tariffs. Appealing to business interests, leveraging support from U.S. businesses that rely on UK steel and aluminum imports to lobby against the tariffs. Dame Angela Eagle, a senior Labour MP, emphasized the importance of maintaining a balanced trade relationship with the U.S., citing the $300 billion worth of trade between the two nations. However, securing a resolution remains uncertain. Broader implications. A new era of trade wars. Trump's latest tariff threat raises concerns about a potential resurgence of global trade wars. If the UK and other nations retaliate, this could lead to a domino effect of protectionist measures worldwide. China has already set a precedent by imposing tit-for-tat tariffs on U.S. goods following new levies introduced on February 4, 2025. China's retaliation against the U.S. China has responded swiftly to U.S. trade measures by implementing tariffs on American goods, including 15% tariffs on U.S. coal and liquefied natural gas products, 10% tariffs on American crude oil, agricultural machinery, and large engine cars. This move signifies the continuation of strained U.S.-China trade relations, with the potential for similar retaliatory actions from other global players. Labour's dilemma and political fallout. The UK's Labour government now faces a significant diplomatic and economic challenge. Having previously argued that it could maintain strong trade ties with a Trump-led U.S. administration, Labour finds itself in a difficult position, scrambling to address an issue it had largely dismissed. Reputation at stake. Labour's credibility on trade and foreign policy is under scrutiny. Pressure from industry. Business leaders and trade unions are likely to demand immediate action to protect jobs. So what do you guys think about this update? Let me know in the comment below. If you like my video, please press like button and subscribe for more. Hope I'll see you in